Chris Robertshaw is with us here in the studio and talking about the numbers of visitors to the Isle of Man. Before we even start, people are going to go, he's on again. You do seem like
probably
the lone wolf, the backbencher. And I have to say, we'd love to hear from the other side. But the news got put out, I think, at the beginning of the Easter break. It was a very... people might say it might have been dumped, time to get rid of some bad news.
I think they'd probably be right, I should think. I mean,
there's been no press conference, I'm saying. We haven't been, I know the radio got them on the phone, but we haven't had...
Well, I was hugely unimpressed with the fact that this very important information, was it were sneaked out on Good Friday?
Remind people exactly what the points are.
Well, there was a destination management report for tourism came out in 2016, and it was talking about the projected or the expectations for the visitor industry between 2016 and 2020. And the forecast was worst case scenario 1% per annum reduction in arrivals, and the upside was best possible scenario was 4% increase per annum. Actually, 24 months or less after that report was produced, and it was published by Lawrence in the first instance, we lost ground between 8 and 9% in 1 year, which is just, horrendous, really. But you compare that to Jersey. Jersey, its visitor numbers to hotel accommodation, what they call period visitors in paid accommodation, was up 16%. Guernsey was up 5% last year.
Okay, let's just deal with how they get these numbers, because I'm sure, like you,
the Isle of Man or Guernsey.
Yeah, well, here first of all, we've been stopped at the airport, normally in departure lounge, and who are you? Are you local? You go on holiday? Isn't that just how they get the information? I mean, there's no safe way of getting numbers, is there? I mean, you can't have an actual totally correct number. It's a survey.
Suggestion it's a mistake.
No, my point
I don't think so.
It's just a survey, isn't it? You're dipping an isolated amount of people, and it could be like ratings go up or down on programmes.
Well,
you are taking a punt, aren't you, slightly on those numbers?
I hope that that those surveys, which are actually quite good, is correlated at the end of the day with the total arrivals and departures both by sea and by air. So the whole thing can be correlated off. And after all, it's now, early April, and we didn't get the report till March. So, they had 12 weeks after the end of the year to put these numbers together. So, they're accurate.
I'm fascinated by the timing, as I said. Fascinated that it seemed almost like to get rid of a bank holiday weekend. Do you think it is that sort of that mindset, being a backbencher, looking in on it, and you've been on the inside looking out? So,
well, I was in the industry for years.
Well, the industry as well, but I meant, would it be a sort of common thing to go, let's just move that quietly into a...
Well, is it unreasonable to be suspicious the way it's come out? And then I was astonished as well how Lawrence tried to brush it aside yesterday, I think it was, saying, we're working really hard, was one of his comments, and there's an overall growth except for last year. Well, I mean, I would argue both of those. First of all, if they're working really hard, how on earth did they get an 8-9% reduction? Why are we so out of kilter with everybody else? It really won't do.
So, and back to numbers, what you referred to then in Jersey, do they have the same accounting process, or is that those numbers you quoted there from some other way?
Jersey said that they've had their best visitor year since 2007.
I'm just asking you, do you think they do the same process, or is it completely another way of doing it?
I think they're
is it like for like, I suppose?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, they are on the up, Guernsey's on the up, and I think importantly, I think it's important to say this, that Guernsey's sea arrivals are up 15%. Ours are collapsing. I think if I can get my numbers right, in 2010, visitor sea arrivals to the Isle of Man were 160,000, and they've dropped every year.
Okay.
To last year, 2017 was 108,000. We've lost 60,000 visitors in 7 years.
And those numbers must be actual numbers, mustn't they? People that have booked. Okay, I accept that. But Guernsey does have the deep water. Does that, do you think, include all these tourists that are coming on this great holiday thing?
If you analyse their numbers, they're showing, for example, business arrivals are up 5%. That's nothing to do with cruise ships. Their visitors staying in paid accommodation is up, and the same with Jersey. So no, it's not comparable.
The airport said they had one of their best years going recently, I'm sure. So something's amiss. I mean, I heard that more people are leaving, to go on holiday than not coming in.
Yeah,
Do you accept that?
I'd accept.
We're all escaping the rock.
I'd accept that. I suppose I would. Yeah, I'd accept that the air arrivals for visitors are up, but they're not compensated by the crash in numbers by sea. And my initial contention out of all of this is, one, that we're not marketing the Isle of Man properly at all, and B, I think it has to be said that the steam packet simply have stopped focusing on visitors, and they have tended, I would argue, looking at the numbers, they've focused more on residents travelling off the island. That's the captive market.
Okay. You worked in the business.
What's actually happening is that the steam packet are making profit out of islanders so that they can pay their international financiers endless thousands of pounds, and effectively ignoring responsibilities they may have towards tourism.
But they'll tell you they've got all this special. There's always a seat available at a great price. I mean, there's always those
that reminds
promos.
Me, that reminds me of the argument in the UK where a bus was travelling around with £1 ticket and there's one
seat. I remember
that.
But they've been.
I think you just look at the numbers and draw your conclusions.
Okay, you've worked in the business. You run the hotel. You've done all this sort of thing, so you know where it's going, what people come over for. How would you fix it? Is there something that you could say to Lawrence and Co and the tourist division on what they should be looking at?
Yes, well, first of all, I would say that we've come to the end of the road with, as far as I'm concerned, with the steam packet. It's not working. They're constricting, throttling the sector. Secondly, I don't think we're serious about tourism. I don't think we're marketing it enough. I think the Department for Enterprise seems to be content with slow malaise, a slow contraction, which is now.
I think they'll say they're targeting walking holidays or steam holidays,
well,
steam train holidays.
It's working, isn't it? I mean, when you see those sort of collapse in numbers, when A, tourism worldwide is a growth industry, and B, comparable destinations are improving their position, and we're not. Big questions have to be asked. These numbers for last year has to be a fundamental wake-up call, because it completely contradicts with this glossy brochure that Department for Enterprise brought out 2 years ago. And I think, frankly, and I don't often say this, but I think it would be right, because of the seriousness of this, for Lawrence now to step down. I don't think he can really carry on when he has put this major document into the public space in 2016, and now is saying, well, we're working hard, and it just simply is not an adequate response. It's now time to seriously accept that there's a big problem, and we need to deal with it in a major way.
But getting rid of him, if he fell on his sword, would that change the mindset of the department behind him? Is he not just leading? Well, is he leading? I mean, that would be no doubt your question.
I think if Council of Ministers consider that it's okay to get it so profoundly wrong, and that somehow everything's justifiable, then frankly, it's a reflection of Council of Ministers as a whole.
Are you looking for a job?
No, I'm not.
Would you take it on?
No, I wouldn't, because I simply don't believe that the structure and the way that they're dealing with it at the moment is adequate.
So are we all doomed in that sense? I mean, surely someone's got to be able to turn this tanker around.
If we accept the fact that tourism is a growth industry, that there are real opportunities, then it is possible to turn it around. But first of all, let's recognise that we're in the wrong place with the wrong strategy, and accept that openly and honestly and start again. I don't want justification and excuses and half apologies and slipping information out at the wrong time of the year. It's not good.
But it's so easy being the backbench. I keep referring to it as that, the sort of lone voice that seems to be out there now because everyone else is involved in something. Do you think you're losing credibility on all these fronts?
I hope not, but I've purposefully taken the position of not being in a department, because once a minister's locked in a department, he is or she is constrained by the circumstances that they're in. The only way to speak out openly and honestly actually is to be a backbencher. Otherwise, you just follow the process, which is what we're seeing happen now. Let's have some real
Who would you
honesty.
have take the position?
First of all, we need to see an absolute acceptance that there's a big problem. Openly and honestly say, look, we're not in the right place. Not running around trying to justify it or find excuses. Then accept the fact that we have really failed to market the Isle of Man. Thirdly, we need to accept the fact that the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company are letting the Isle of Man down.
You made these points.
Well, you've asked me.
But I think you've made them already. And this is something new. I think you've said all those already in the interview. I'm asking you, who do you fancy? Who do you think is capable of, as an MHK, to head this department?
No one person is capable of doing that. Honestly, there isn't. There isn't somebody who's going to be the herald of a new beginning. But government itself must accept the fact that it's not in the right place. It's got to think about the support factors behind a minister as to how they're going to structure a professional assessment of where we need to go. If the 2016 document is anything to go by, then we're not capable of doing it. So we need to go really deep down into this to work out how the hell we're going to get the strategy
Department
right.
of Enterprise is going to have these 4 heads, but there's still going to have to be an MHK. You're saying that Lawrence Skelly should go.
As a gesture to the fact that we have failed.
So you accept that at the end of the day, replacing him with another MHK isn't necessary.
No, it's not the only answer.
No,
it's part of accepting the fact.
And which person would you pick? You got all the people. If you had to pick and nominate somebody to run it,
whoever's going to head this.
Give me a name.
No, I won't. Whoever's going to head this needs to have behind them, him or her, behind them, a completely different structure.
Background in tourism.
Perhaps, but you're talking politically. I'm talking about.
I know, but
now hang on a second, Paul. The political head is the political head of something, the body.
Who you think should step down?
Yes, and therefore that's by implication that's a profound criticism on the body behind it as well, which has failed. So just putting a new minister in isn't going to magically.
I accept that.
Right, fine. What we have to do is accept this is now a really serious problem. How did we end up with such a pathetically inaccurate document only 24 months ago, which has so failed? It's 800% beyond worst case scenario projections. That's how bad it was. How could they honestly get it that wrong? Well, they did. So it's not just the minister. The minister, if I was the minister, I'd step down because I would feel that would be a gesture towards trying to seriously address the issue that we're in. There's a sort of an endless complacency about the way our politics works. We, in a broader sense, we've got out of a long-term, almost decade-long recession, and we've pulled out a little bit of it, and suddenly we're getting really comfortable again, and that's dangerous. Now, if other areas are growing their tourism and we're not, what is it that we're not doing right? Well, quite a lot. I've discussed some of them.
You know, the new place being built by Marxies, the Mount Murray come back online. You know, people have shown confidence in a market of people staying over. You accept that they wouldn't be building these things unless they thought there was.
It's an act of faith.
Traffic there
it's an act of faith on their part, but that's got to be followed through with a determination and a commitment to tourism, which is frankly lacking. I mean, the Department for Enterprise just don't seem to be comfortable or competent with being positive and driven.